Dwayne, just to begin with then, a warm welcome back to the Scarlets, not quite Stradey Park, but it is the home changing rooms of Barc y Strade, and an interesting fact here is obviously Wayne James, the kitman, dresses the home changing rooms at Barc y Strade exactly the same as the number set up in Stradey Park, didn't they? So I remember the 9s and 10s were here somewhere. Yep. Changing. What sort of emotions does it bring back being back at the Scarlet?
Yeah, it's obviously fantastic. I think, I have so many good memories of times gone by where being in Stradey Park and going there as a youngster to start, going there as a child with my dad, catching the bus down to watch the Scarlets play, and then obviously realising your dream really of playing for your home club. And being in the change rooms, I think just little traditions like you mentioned, Jamesy kitting out the change rooms exactly like it was. No order, no rhyme and reason to it really. I remember myself and Steve would sit in the corner, big Vernon Cooper next door. So it was, it's great. I know those little traditions for me are fantastic.
It is important. It's a new place, isn't it? It's a very professional sport nowadays. But looking at the here and now, the players have been back training about 4 weeks up to this point. How's everything gone?
Yeah, it's been good. I think, to be fair, I think that we've worked them hard. The volume of running has been big, and they've adapted well. To be fair, I think I couldn't ask for more in terms of what they've given from that perspective. The rugby stuff we've changed up quite a bit. So there's a lot of learning still to be done, I think. But from where we are now, sort of 4 weeks in, we're fairly happy with our progress so far. I think that we've got a few. After 4 weeks, we're giving them a few days off. But when we come back, it's sort of into competition phase. Then 2 pre-season friendlies, 2 weeks off for the start of the season. So it's the weeks are going thick and fast, and there's still a lot to be done. But I think we're in a decent spot as where we are.
There is a lot to be done. We mentioned obviously, as well as a new head coach coming in, but obviously then we've got a new team supporting you as well. So there's a head of performance, Nigel Ashley-Jones. So he would have had the majority of time with the players up to this point, would he?
Yes and no. I think he's obviously had a big lead in certain aspects, but in times gone by where we've been sort of doing fitness first and then rugby comes after, day one was rugby. So from that element it's changed. It's just the loading in terms of the running has probably increased with the mixture of the rugby. But I was lucky really to have Nigel. I think that I was lucky to work with him when I was a player. He was the head of performance at Sale for a year or for 2 years before he returned to Canberra, and I was when I first arrived at the club, I knew that they were talking to him, and it was a great appointment for my behalf. He's expertise in the area is first and foremost, but just a character around the group. I think he's a lively character, and the boys have taken well to him.
And as well as Nigel Ashley-Jones, you got Hugh Hogan as defence coach, and Joe Lewis starting as head of technical performance as well. So there's a lot of experience as well in the team around you. Yeah,
and I think that's important. Obviously, me being a new head coach as such, bringing Joey back from the RFU is obviously a big coup for us as well. He's been working with Eddie Jones, over the last 4 years. Brings a lot of experience from that role. His role has sort of developed as well within that time, from an analyst perspective to being sort of head of technical performance. So that in itself is a great help for me in that technical area, analytical area, I suppose. And then Hugh come in from Leinster. He brings great experience of that environment and also technical expertise of that sort of tackle area, contact area, which he's been doing a lot of work with Leinster with, and then able to transfer it hopefully with us in the defensive side of things. So it's a great appointment again. He's a good man, very detailed, very good knowledge of the game in that area. And I think, as with Nige, the boys have really taken well to what he's put in place so far.
And just to look back then and see what Dwayne Peel brings as a head coach. Obviously, I remember you was a 17-year-old, fresh-faced youngster joining us at Llanelli Scarlets, or even Llanelli RFC at the time, of course. It would have been Llanelli RFC. And unbelievably, really, in a way, it was Mooney who was taking you under his wing, wasn't it? My protege, my protege, put your arm around you, my protege. But two completely different scrum halves. But there's a support network throughout anyone's career, isn't there? There's people you look up to. Who are the main characters you remember joining the Scarlets or way back?
I think there's so many. I think obviously when you first come into an environment, it's sort of you go into that environment with guys you've been watching as a child, really. I was lucky enough to come in early at 17. I remember going to the 92 season, the treble winning season, watching all the games there. The likes of Mooney and Scotty coming through as a young man then. So these guys like Boobs, Neil, so these guys I've sort of grown up watching, and then it's not that it's intimidating. It is a bit intimidating when you go into that changing room first and foremost, because you're playing with guys, your heroes in effect. So like from that perspective, but one thing we did have is load of characters. Like Mooney in himself was a character. Mads came into changing rooms. Ian Boobia, these guys were larger than life characters, and that was great to be in that environment. And they made you feel welcome straight away, and obviously made you feel uneasy sometimes with some of the banter going around and things. But it was great, and people like I think people like Scotty. You see, Scotty is renowned for being one of the best players, definitely one of the best players I've played with. Fantastic player, but such a humble person who really helped everyone really. He's the same now as he's ever been, and I had a lot of admiration for him as a person really, from being that world-class figure, I suppose, and someone who would do so much to help you.
You mentioned the characters. Remember Mads, wasn't it? None of the other players there would have gotten away with what Mads got away with in a way, wasn't it? I remember being in a team meeting once and Mads' phone would go off. And if that happened to us, we'd be like, oh, phone goes off, but Mads would actually take the time, answer the phone, have a little chat, try and sell his fruit. Yeah. And then see you. But Gareth Jenkins as head coach would love the characters. We used to work hard, but there was also a social element to it, and you would allow the players to enjoy themselves as well.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's important, and I still think it's important in the game now. I think that one thing, obviously, the game has moved on in terms of professionalism, and rightly so. That the game's different now. Society's different now to when we were younger. So I think that the demands on the players, both on and off the field, are far greater. But I still think there has to be room for guys to be themselves as well. And I think that's important. That we don't want robots really. And I think in this area in West Wales, we tend to have characters, and we have to encourage that for guys to be themselves, albeit that the demands of the game are different, the professionalism is different, and they have to toe by that. Otherwise, they get left behind or they get found out, and that's the reality of it. But we still got some good characters here in the group. So I'm not one to stop that really. We need to encourage that. People to be themselves. Yeah,
for the James Davises and your Rob Evanses of this world, it was your Gareth Bowens, your Mark Jones, your Rob McBrides, and you were probably one of the biggest practical jokers back in the day.
Yeah.
I remember boots being frozen in blocks of ice. I remember Mark Jones putting his socks on. And you'd cut his socks. But looking back, they are important memories for a group of players as they go through a career and experiences together.
Yeah, I think, when you look back to your career, those are the things. Like you always remember the big games. You always remember the European Cup nights at Stradey and stuff like that. But sometimes it's the off-the-field things you remember most as well, and you have a chuckle about. And I think that that's important, that they've got those memories as well. You know, the things you've spoken about there, or just sitting in the change rooms post-games, like enjoying wins together. Yeah. You know, so I think that those memories will always be with you, and I think that we have to try and encourage that as well.
It was a great period for us, and gosh, 20 years or so ago, whenever it was now, isn't it? We were a strong team. We look back at it now, and we mentioned now that we were close to going through to the final of European competition. We were one of the best teams in Europe. Unluckily, we missed out a couple of times, but when we look back now, we think, gosh, with that team that we had at that time, we should have won Europe. And it is a regret that I have. I know you would still have that regret. For some reason in West Wales, maybe we don't have the confidence we should have in our own abilities. How would Dwayne Peel, the coach, approach maybe insecurities like that?
I don't think it, potentially not insecurities. I think that it's the belief, as you said, that we can be better than people, and I think that you know, on an international stage, we've proven that. I think that if you look at the honours board in the cafe there, of the great Lions we've had, the great internationals we've had come from this area, and I think the big thing for us is like, why not us? You know, I think that's a big thing. Why can't it be, you know, like sort of Phil Bennett growing up in Felinvol, who ends up being the British Lions captain, you know, Scott Connell from Furness, who ends up being rugby league, rugby union legend, and that's, you know, we've done it. So I think the belief for us as sort of people, boys from this area, boys and girls from this area, is why can't it be us? I think, and that's I think the big drive. And then when we get opportunities to take it, not to think that, you know, the great other sides in Europe are richer in history, because they're not, are better than, you know, technically better than us, because they're not. So I think it's about having that belief, I think, as a group and as a club.
It was a great time for the Scarlets 20 years ago, and I don't want to go on about that, but obviously you've been away from us now for about 13 years. Mae cyfnod ti wedi bod bant o'r clwb nawr. Beth i ti wedi dysgu yn Sale, ymrysten y ware a hyfforddi ymryste? A wedyn yn Ulster hefyd, beth i ti wedi dysgu dros y degawd diwetha?
Ben i'n meddwl y peth, ffordd gwahanol o ware'r gêm i ddechrau. Fi'n credu bod mae'n pob clwb wedi bod yna, mae'r ffordd ni wedi bod yn chwarae'n wedi bod yn gwahanol, mae'r ffordd mae'r hyfforddwyr wedi mynd ati i fforddi'r tîm wedi bod yn wahanol. Ambell waith fi'n meddwl bod yn dda, ambell waith ni'n meddwl, does dim siarp yna ni fan hyn, i fod yn onest i chi. A hefyd ffordd, fi'n credu bod e'n bwysig i feddwl fel mae pobl arall yn ystyried Rugby Cymru, a Ranbarthau hefyd. Oedd hwnna'n, wedig y 4 blynedd diwetha yn Ulster, oedd hwnna'n peth cymerus i fwyaf, o fel, yn wedig dod nôl nawr, fel o'n nhw'n edrych arno ni, o'r tu allan.
So fel o'n nhw'n edrych arno ni?
Fel
ma' nhw'n edrych arno ni?
Fi'n credu bod nhw'n meddwl bod ni'n tîm peryglis, fi'n credu. Oedd wastod, wastod hyder gyda nhw bod nhw'n gallu ennill y gemi, ond nhw'n gwybod bod e'n mynd i fod yn anodd, a bod chwaraewyr dda dyn ni. A hwnna beth falle i fi fel, maen nhw tîm llawn chwaraewyr dda, o falle maen nhw ddim yn chwarae lefel cystadleuol ar y lefel top, bydden ni'n gweud. Na bydden nhw'n edrych. Amlwg y 4 blynedd yn ôl, sy'n nillwn i'r gyngrair, eithon ni'n ail y blwyddyn ganlynol. Fi credu oedd ystyriaeth bod ni yn cystadleuol iawn ar y top, ond falle wrth edrych mewn nawr bod nhw'n meddwl fel, maen nhw'n llawn chwaraewyr dda, os waron ni fel tîm, lle ni ennill y gêm.
There was a purple patch, wasn't it really, that 4 years ago we put in an amazing run of games towards the end of the season, 2017, and carried that momentum into the following year when we qualified for semi-finals of Europe again. All right, we haven't hit those levels since, but you'd believe that we can maybe get back to competing at that level again.
I think consistency is a big thing. And I think that consistency of performance for me is the one thing that I've spoken to the players about. I think that the level of consistency week in, week out, the team has to look very similar week in, week out. And I think that's one thing. Like there's no doubt in times where played some great rugby, and then conversely a couple of weeks or a week after not played such great rugby. And I think that there has to be a level of consistency of performance across the board. Now there's going to be times when you not play well, and that's rugby. There's going to be times you win games and you haven't played well. There's going to be times you lose when you've played well. And I'm not talking about winning and losing or winning cups or anything. All I'm saying is the consistency of what we're doing in our habits daily on the pitch. I think that's important for us. And I think it's important for not only us to see as coaches or as or fellow players, but people who are coming to watch the game, or paying to come and watch the game as well. They want to turn up and know what we're getting. And if we win, we win. And if we don't, we don't. But I think that the level of consistency for me is one driver that definitely spoken to the players about.
Have you also spoken to players yet about any goal setting for this season or moving forward? Have you gone that far ahead in your planning?
No, not yet. No, I think it's just obviously because we've got so much things that we've tried to implement, new things to implement. We've talked about that consistency, definitely. Goal setting, I think it'll be down the line. We need to get into games and things, and we still need to get our whole squad back together before we start thinking about goal setting. Obviously, we've got 4 Lions representatives, a couple of international boys yet to come back, so it's a bit of a fractured pre-season from that perspective, especially this year, Lions year as well. So it's going to be waiting for them guys to get back, and once we have the whole group together, then we can talk about goals maybe for block 1 and block 2 of the season, how we go about it that way, and keep progressing there.
Yeah, the consistency of performance is important, as you said. Do you have a vision of how you want the Scarlets to play?
Look, traditionally we've played quick, open rugby, and I'm not seeing that change. That's the way I like to play. I think if you look at the profile of our squad, it suits that. But that's not to get away from the fact that we have to defend well, and we have to be physical. And it's easy to say, we're going to throw the ball around. But when it comes to a level of game, or when you step up the levels, then that is great when it's on. But you have to have those levels of consistency in your physicality and your defence. And I think that obviously the other areas of the game go hand in hand with that. Your kick chase, your set piece, etc. But we want to play quick. We want to play good rugby, as long as the other elements are in place, which allow us to do that, really.
It's a bit of a myth, not a myth, a bit, Scarlets are remembered as, throwing the ball wide, having a crack from everywhere, but in reality that was never the case. It was a quick game with tempo, undoubtedly, but when we were playing, we had big men trucking the ball up, didn't we? It wasn't, we weren't playing this quick, wide game. It was high tempo, yes, but it wasn't a wide game, really.
And that's the thing, I think high tempo can mean different things as well. It might not mean playing Sevens, Barbarians rugby, it might mean playing quick, which means playing physical. And I think that that's definitely the case. If you look at, we talked about 4 or 5 years ago, they played some fantastic rugby. But a lot of it was on the back of some really good defence and turnovers from key players as well, giving you the opportunity to play. Which gave them a chance to express themselves, and they played some fantastic rugby as well. So it's you're right, Guy. I think that it's it's a bit of a false economy if you're going to say like we're going to play from everywhere.
Game's changed, and the game has definitely changed, and even without the changes, it wasn't quite. We were never that anyway. We were just playing from everywhere. We were still picking our moments. So looking at this season, then huge challenge, isn't it? Still missing a few Lions at the start of the season. Welsh boys are back training now, but a big difference this year now. Fans are going to be back. Would mean a lot to you as a coach and to this group of players.
Yeah, definitely. I think generally in sport we've missed that. It's just even watching the football now, the Premier League, and seeing crowds in stadiums and things. It's great to have that. And from my end, I think I'm really excited about that, having fans back here. And I think the players are. Obviously the players are. I think the big thing for us as a group that we will speak about is making sure that when that does happen, or when the fans are back, is that we've spoken about that level of consistency, that when they turn up they expect a standard, and I think that's going to be important for us to represent that shirt, represent the club and the region, and what we stand for really. I think that's for me coming back, having grown up with that sort of in my DNA, like yourself. I think that's important to me. That the DNA of the club, and it's something I've never lost. Like, I've been away a long time, as you said, but it's something that you can't replace elsewhere, I think, is the honest truth.
That's difficult to put your finger on. Exactly what is it that makes a Scarlet, but it does give us a bit of an edge that we can take into every single team we play against this year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. I think, like, from having grown up here, I think that even when we played, not everyone was from Llanelli or Carmarthen or Pembrokeshire. They were a lot have come from Bridgend, Cardiff, further afield. But I think that they understood when they came here what we were all about, and they understood that what it meant. Gar obviously drove a lot of that, but I'd say a lot of the local players did as well. We were lucky that we had a good core of players from this area. I think yourself, Scott, Steve, Dav Jones, Nigel Davis, Wayne Proctor. These type of players were synonymous with the club, so I think they understood it, and I think that everyone sort of bought into that vision then. So I think that's important. Like Slesifi come from Australia. Tongan born, come from Australia, but you wouldn't find a more proud Scarlet really when he was here, because he understood what it was all about. So I think that's important as well, that maybe the local boys have to take a push on that. We'll speak about that. We've spoken about that already, that it has to mean so much to them, which in turn people will buy into, I think. They lead. We've seen it with Ken, and I spoke to Foxy about it the other day, and that's something that he definitely mentioned to me, was how important it was to represent, or he felt that we wanted to make sure that we're representing the region. So I think that's, if you've got leaders like that leading that, then hopefully that we can push that, definitely.
Best of luck for the season. It's great to see you back here, and I know one way or another you'll make sure the Scarlets are still fighting, battling for everything, and I can't wait for the season. And I understand it's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna be a process that will take a while, but best of luck.
Thanks, Scott.
No problems.
Diolch, mate.
Nice to meet you all, bye.
Iawn, pal.